Hello, I've been wanting to make this video for some time. This video is about my vintage Rickenbacker 4001 bass in Azureglo, beautiful Azureglo, from 1978. What I wanted to do was talk about how I came to be in possession of this bass, why I bought it, and potentially how good it is and whether that purchase was actually worthwhile. So as I mentioned, this is a 1978 Azureglo Rickenbacker 4001 bass. I imported this from Japan a couple of years ago after some extensive searching around on the internet and locally to try and find a 4001 from the 70s. Now, there's a couple of reasons why I wanted to do that, and I'll give you the backstory. So my first bass was a Rickenbacker 4001 copy made by Hondo, and it had a bolt-on neck. And I'm going to pop a picture of that bass up on the screen now with me, much younger days. So that was my first bass, and I loved it, and I loved the shape of that bass. Unfortunately, it was a bolt-on neck, and it was a bit loose, and it wasn't very good. And in those days, not knowing much about basses or guitars, eventually I sold it for less than I paid for it, and I paid £70 for that bass. And that was through an intermediary mate of mine, so my mate bought it off somebody else and sold it to me straight away. So he might have made a few quid on it as well. So I ended up selling that bass on for £40 eventually. Interestingly, in those days as well, my mate Steve had this, what we used to call the combat bass, which I think was an Ibanez, either set neck or through neck Rickenbacker copy, but it had been painted in camouflage colours and had these big holes bored through it to look like bullet holes or machine gun holes, and it had absolutely no sustain whatsoever because of that. They were massive holes. We don't have that bass anymore. I think Steve threw it away. But again, these kind of things now, if we'd have kept hold of the Hondo and kept hold of that one, people find them quite interesting and useful, and they're not bad basses in their own right if they're looked after and set up well. And mine probably could have been fixed. Anyway, so that's what got me started on Rickenbackers. I started playing in bands. So my mainstay bass in those days was a Japanese Squier Precision, which I still own. But at some point I wanted a real Rickenbacker. And I went along to musical exchanges in Birmingham. I don't know if people remember that. I think that was Snow Hill, if I remember rightly, in Birmingham. Massive place. Brilliant shop. And they had used Rickenbacker in 1979 in jet glow, and they wanted £550 for it. So I went and bought that bass, had it set up, and some paintwork touched up as well on that bass by a gentleman called Bob Barry, who's still going actually. He sets up guitars and basses in the UK. I think my friend who I was in the band with still uses him. And this was, bear in mind, 30 odd years ago, right? So yeah, that was a really nice bass after it had been set up. Never sounded that great for recording though, and I always went back to the Squier Precision for recording. I did try one recording session with that Rickenbacker, and just didn't sound that great. Anyway, it comes to year 2000. We have our first child, and I'm doing up the house, and I decided to sell the bass, and I sold it for $550. And I had this guy, massive guy, tattoos everywhere, big rocker guy, comes to my house, and he offers me $500, and I said no, it's $550. And I hadn't even twigged whether the Rickenbackers were going up in value. I just thought, I paid $525. I've had a bit of work done on it. It's worth $550, so I didn't even think about whether the value had gone up and what a Rickenbacker was worth in 2000, I've got no idea. Anyway, eventually he agreed to pay me all the money, and I gotta say I almost cried as that bass went out the door. And I thought about it ever since. So let's turn this down a second. So long story short, I didn't have a Rickenbacker for many years then, and then on my 40th birthday I decided to buy myself this one over here, which is a 4003 S. I bought this in Melbourne when I was living in Melbourne, and it cost 2,300 Australian dollars in those days. This bass sounds mega. It's really nice punchy bottom end, it's really loud, it plays really well, the action is fantastic on it. Really good bass, and it's what, you know, it's the 4003S, so it's not stereo, you can see there, and this is the kind of the workman's Rickenbacker, I guess, and I use this quite a lot, and I still take this one out from time to time today, although I do get a bit precious about my Rickenbackers, then I probably don't play them out as much as I should. So it's got a few knocks and scratches. So this is a 1993 model. Now this bass is actually substantially louder than the 78, and I think the sound out of this bass, I don't know, it's just more punchy. It sounds a lot better. I'll plug it in. I don't know whether you'll tell the difference, but you'll see straight away it's so much louder. So you can see a lot louder than the 4001, and the sound just a lot more fuller, a lot, you know, a lot punchier. So that's the 4003S. And so I got that bass, bought that one 15 years ago now, and I still craved the 4001 that I had back when I was in my sort of mid-20s, early to mid-20s, playing in a punk band in the UK, punk band called Scraper. We had one album out on Household Name Records, but so the last 18 months, 2 years of that band, I was playing that Rickenbacker almost exclusively, mainly because it looked really cool, and it was great live bass, played really nicely, but it sounded a bit like this one. So it, you know, it's not as punchy as the 4003S, still a very nice bass. So just take you through this. So these are a through neck bass. You can see on the back of this one, you know, it's got some battle scars, but what would you expect really from a bass? There's a few scratches on the front of it. One of the caps off one of the controls there is missing, but all in all, a very nice bass. Really enjoy owning it. I'm going to make it a New Year's resolution for 2026 to actually take that bass out and play it a lot more. Okay, I've got a few notes here, just with my figures on. So I guess the interesting thing with this bass is how much it cost me, and whether we think it was actually worthwhile in the end. So I got this bass from Japan off Yahoo auctions through an intermediary company called Buy, and you can go and look those up. But you can essentially you can place bids on Japanese auctions, and the Buy are like middlemen. So they'll take the delivery of the item, they'll inspect it, and then they'll repackage it and send it on to you wherever abouts you are in the world. So I won this on the Buy auction, and that was 328,779 yen, which works out at about 3,671 Australian dollars for the base. So that's the cost of the base. I then had some buyer's fees, so that was another 800 yen. And then when the thing gets to Buy, they give you a couple of options of how you can ship it, and the cheapest was DHL. And the way that they packed this thing, it was kind of double boxed, and it should have really been repacked in my opinion. It came with a case, but the DHL costs were pretty extortionate. So that was 53,912 yen to ship it to me. Okay, but the costs don't stop there, because then we've got Australian import duty. So anything that you import into Australia, they charge you an import duty on if it's worth more than, I think, $1,000. So $451 Australian dollars import duty. So that makes my landed cost to me for this base, everything added up in total, 4,733 Australian dollars. So I don't know what you can get a vintage Rickenbacker for in Australia these days. You know, I'd imagine something like this is around the $5,000 mark, but I could be out on that. It might be a bit less, might be a bit more. Right, so but this thing's cost me 4,733. Yeah, I don't know. I don't think it was a bargain. I don't think it was massively expensive either compared to the price of other Rickenbackers. Was it worth it? Well, I've got the 4003S over there that cost me 2,300 15 years ago. I think that's appreciated as well, although I'd hate to hazard a guess what it might be worth. And of course, these things are only worth what people are prepared to pay for them, right? So I might just have a look on the internet and see what we can get one for. Okay, so just having a quick look on Reverb here. And okay, there is a 1976 Jet Glow. This is all coming from the States. 5,916 Australian, and then there'll be some shipping on top of that. So that's just the price of the base. So 78 for 5,923 Australian. There's one in Japan for 5,187. And bear in mind, these are all going to have a few $100 shipping on top of these, right? There's a 78 in Burgundy from the United Kingdom. They want $7,685 for that plus shipping. Yeah, 73, and the 73s, I think they had the checkerboard binding, so they're a little bit more special. 9,354. So you can see the prices are kind of all over the place, but they are a bit more than I paid for that, and especially if we add the shipping in as well. So I'm thinking, okay, so it's probably 18 months since I bought this, but I'm thinking it's probably not a bad deal. Now, just while we're talking about this, I'm going to look up the 4003S. So there's 2025 models are 3,896. What we got here? An 86, 5,449. Yeah, these are more than the 4,001. You get the brand new ones are about 338. So a lot of new ones on here. Yeah, one from Japan here, 3278. That's the cheapest on there. So, that's That's nearly $1,000 more than that cost me, plus the shipping on those. So I don't know. I think what it tells you is that the Rickenbackers are an appreciating asset, right? So if we think that going back to 1995, when I bought the original 4001, 525, 515, I can't quite remember what I paid for it in pounds. So what's that? That's just over $1,000. So let's call it $1,050 for argument's sake. And now the price of them, they are an appreciating asset. So I think well worth having, not just as a base to play, but as a collector's item as well. Now, there's a couple of things to mention with this base. So the shop that sold it in Japan had actually done some work on it. So they replaced a couple of the pots that weren't working, but they gave me the originals, so I still have those. They'd replaced one of the jack sockets, and again they've given me the original of that as well. So they're all still in the case. They wired these jack sockets. You know, you have the mono and the Rico sound, the two jack sockets there. They wired them the wrong way around, so I had my tech just fix that up for me. I could have done it myself, but I had him look at something else, which I'll now tell you about as well. So I did 1 gig with this, and I don't know whether somebody messed with it or what happened, but I lost one of these pins here. And what I did is I ordered some new ones, and they are the same as the strap pins actually. So I did order some new ones, but what I did is I replaced one of the strap pins in the 4003 and put the pin from that into here, because it's more worn and it's more aged, and it looks the part, fits this base better. If I'd have put a new one in here, it would have looked a bit odd, right? Also what happened is that this pickup had come loose and it hadn't been screwed in properly. They used the wrong screw, and there were all sorts of bits missing, and the pickup had become detached, and I found that the pickup wire was very, very short, and I had to wire an extra bit of wire to it to get the thing to work. And in the end I got my tech to fix it properly for me, because it was a little bit underpowered compared to the other pickup, and he's got them nicely balanced now as well, and this is all nice and solid and all been fixed. But what that tells me is sometime in the past that pickup had been taken out and probably replaced with something else, and then at some point they've put the original pickup back in, but they've cut the wire short on it. I don't know why you would mess with a Rickenbacker like that, but you know, who knows. This thing is obviously from 1978, right? So the fact that it's actually still in one piece and has survived that length of time is you know, pretty much a miracle. In terms of strings, I exclusively use rotor sounds. I just love the tone of rotor sound strings. It's personal preference. Nothing against other strings. Not sponsored by them or anything like that. I'm not famous enough for anything like that. But I always use rotor sounds. I had rotor sounds put on this. Sounds great. My favourite bass players. It's ironic, really, that, you know, I love Bruce Foxton and Peter Hook as bass players, and they both started with Rickenbacker copies. But funnily enough, I know that Foxton got a real Rickenbacker and he didn't like it at all, and he went to the Fender Precision and Ibanez's and other basses, right? So, and Peter Hook likewise went to the Yamaha BB basses. They didn't actually like the sound of Rickenbackers at all, yet all those early photos of those with those Rickenbacker copies that they had then, they're not even real Rickenbackers. If you look at some of the early promo shots of the Jam, you'll see the headstock is out of shot because it's not a real Rickenbacker. And likewise Peter Hook, when you see him on some of the early TV footage, he's playing that Rickenbacker copy as well. So that's quite ironic, really. I guess, you know, Lemmy always used to play a Rickenbacker. and Geddy Lee, although he's got a book on all the different basses he owns, so he doesn't just exclusively play them either. Chris Squire, obviously they made a signature Chris Squire Rickenbacker, so he's another one. I know the bloke from Wolfmother, Australian band. He used to play a Rick. I know Paul McCartney had one. I think he played it more in Wings than he did in the Beatles, though, because he's obviously famous for that Hofner violin bass that he had. Yeah, so I don't know. I don't know. There's obviously famous people out there, well-known bass players that used these. Is it worth it? I think as an instrument it's beautiful. I think as an investment you probably can't go wrong. I think as a player's guitar, there's better guitars out there. I mean, I've got a Yamaha BB734A. It cost me less than $800. It's rock solid, does everything you want it to. It's active. It's just a solid gigging bass, and that's the one I use the most. And it's cheap. And I think as a bass player, getting yourself a solid, reliable bass is worthwhile. But if you've always loved a Rickenbacker, you're not going to go wrong with one. You're not going to lose money on it, that's for sure, based on what I've just looked up. They do play great. Depending on which model you get, you're going to have a slightly different tone. I think the later ones, again, have got a different tone. And I know that some of them have got a push-pull pot that lets you swap between like a classic Rickenbacker tone and their more modern sort of sound. So they've made improvements to the pickups over the years, or changes at least. Don't know if you call it an improvement. I guess that's a point of view thing. I like them. I really do like them, and I do like that distinctive sound as well. So I'd say yes, it's worthwhile. Well, I really hope that was interesting. I mean, it's more of a video about my thoughts on Rickenbackers and how I ended up with this than a full-on 101 guide. But I hope you found it interesting, and if you did and you want to see more of these music related videos, then please consider subscribing to the channel. Please give this video a like. That all helps the algorithm. And yeah, just thanks very much for tuning in, and I'll see you in the next one. Thank you.